Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 20th, 2020 Abington Finance Committee meeting. Tonight we are continuing to work on the budget and the town meeting warrant articles. I will share quickly the agenda that we have for tonight. Matt from Abington Cam, if you could allow me to screen share, that would be great.
Hi,
Oh,
Katie.
and there's Katie. Excellent. Glad you could make it, Katie.
Hi.
We know you're busy. All right, so.
Matt, you should be good to screen share now.
Thank you very much. All right, sharing there. Can everyone see the agenda?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
So our agenda tonight, we will be going over reviewing the warrant articles, primarily looking at capital items, including the drive-through window at the town hall, which is why we have our treasurer, Sonia Hodge, with us. Thank you for joining, Sonia. Looking at what we'll be putting into stabilization, another review of where we're at with the FY21 budget, and looking at the remaining unvoted warrant articles and potentially any review of the previously voted warrant articles. We may or may not need to go back to any of those. So I think our starting place, so that we don't take up too much of our treasurer's evening, would be to start with details on the drive-through window at the town hall.
Okay. Hi,
Sonia,
everybody. It's nice
welcome.
to see you. Thanks for having me so I can help answer some of your questions.
Thank you for coming back.
No problem. I did watch the portion of the meeting from last week where you guys were discussing this article. So I was able to hear what a lot of the concerns were and just the overall questions about the project. I guess I'll start with, I started soliciting quotes for this. Actually started trying to find vendors before I went out on maternity leave. And then when I got back, I started calling in September to get quotes. So this was already in the works, trying to get this done because of the frustration with the current setup. But with the situation that we're in right now, I'm really, really glad that I had done it when I did. Part of the issue with the current drawer is with the audio. The wires connecting the microphone to the speaker is completely shot. It corroded all the way through, so there was no connection left. The style of the system that we have is so old that they don't make parts for this any longer, and it's not something that can just be repaired or rewired. It has to be replaced. And because the drawer is so old, in order to replace the audio part, we have to replace the whole drawer. And since they don't make drawers with these exact dimensions any longer, we would have to also replace the counter that it sits in, because the counter right now cannot handle being retrofitted. It's actually being held up with packing tape right now, so it would not survive any type of cutting or sawing through it. So in order to fix the issue that we're having with the audio, the whole thing has to be replaced, unfortunately. And I did ask if they could repair it instead of replacing, and they just said no, it's way too old. The drawer was used when the building was built, and I'm not sure where they got the drawer from. The vendors that I've contacted, they don't have used drawers that we could use. But considering the building was built 20 years ago and it was used then, there's a good chance the drawer is older than I am. I'm not that old, but still, that is pretty old for a bank drawer. And as far as I know, at least in the last 15 years, the audio has not worked properly. So we've gone without for a long time. As we see more people using it, as the population ages, because most of our customers who use it are elderly or disabled, or just busy on their lunch break trying to get some errands done before they have to go back to the office. Being able to have a functioning system where they can come in, talk to us without having to scream at us, it helps get business done quicker, and it helps them have a better experience when they come to town hall. Now, I will say that they can hear us. The microphone and speaker going out does work, but we can't hear them. So we're asking them to yell through the drawer, which you can imagine right now, having someone yell forcefully right into where you're breathing so that you can hear them right now it's just not safe to be doing that. So I hesitate to want to use the drive up very much right now if we're going to have people yell as close to our faces as they can. And for the elderly, often that's just not a very comfortable way of doing their transactions because their voices often don't carry very well, and it can be a very frustrating experience for them. So that's kind of the main overview, but I'm happy to answer any other specific questions that you have.
Sonia, what's the volume that you're seeing right now of drive-through customers?
Well, we're still closed to the public, so we don't have anybody coming through right now, but I can tell you that cars do still come by hoping that we're open. So even though we've been closed for 2 months, they're still coming every day to try to make payments through the drive-up window. And honestly, we've never done a count to see, on a normal day or at tax time, how many people are using it. But I can tell you that the person that handles the drive-up is up and down all day during tax time because it is frequently used. Like I said, for elderly, the disabled, and people who are just busy, or they have young kids that they don't want to haul inside and right back out.
Certainly right now, it would be a safer way of doing business just all the way around.
Absolutely, for our staff and for the customers. If a customer is coming into the building, they have to go by the building department, the town clerk, and the assessor's department. And if those departments are helping people, you've got people walking by all of those customers in order to come to our counter and then stand in line next to each other. So the exposure there is definitely higher than it would be in the drive-through. Now, obviously, we're still going to be touching paper, but we would be if they put it in the drop box or they mailed it. I mean, we're still going to have to touch paper, but eventually we are going to have to open back up to customers. And a lot of people do like to pay with cash, and we can't do that any other way. So this would allow those customers to come back and paying in a way that they feel more comfortable with as well.
Other questions? I know we had a lot last week, so.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Sonia, it's Greg. Wouldn't it just be a better overall thing to just tell them to mail it?
Right now, we are encouraging people to mail their payments, especially if they have their remittance coupon. They can mail it to the lockbox that we use so that we don't actually have to touch anything. But for people who don't have their bill, they lost it, they just decide they want to go ahead and stop by and pay it, and they need to ask us how much it is, they have cash, or whatever it may be. We have a lot of people that do still need to come in to talk to us about things. And like I said, eventually we are going to have to open back up and help customers, and this is a safer way to do so. And considering how frustrating it's been, I will add one more thing. There is a security issue with it right now because it's so old. We're actually we have to work very hard to lock it every night. I actually have to use like the hole in a pair of scissors to pull the tab so that I can lock it, which I can't imagine is a very safe way to do that. But it's the only way that we can get it closed. So that's, I don't want anyone to lose a finger trying to close the drawer.
I guess the bigger question is, I mean, it's disappointing that now it's an emergency in a time that our budget doesn't have a lot of money, but why did we allow this to go on for 15 years to get it to the state that it's in now?
Well, this is the state that it's been in for a long time. Like I said, at least for 15 years, the audio hasn't worked, and we've just kind of dealt with it. I've only been here for 4 years, so I can't speak to why it continued in the past, but it's been getting to a point where it's getting harder and harder to tell people, yes, we still cannot hear you. Please speak louder. And so that's why last year I started gathering information I was hoping to just have it repaired. But then both of the vendors that I was working with said that wasn't possible. So I would say in the beginning, I wasn't seeing it as an emergency. Now I'm seeing it, in light of the pandemic, as a way to meet our customers where they're at so that we can help them in a better way and keep them safe and my staff safe, because we're going to be coming into contact with so many people. This is a great way that we can kind of reduce the amount of contact and exposure so that they can stay safe and their families can stay safe.
So to that end, one of the questions that we had asked last week was, do we know what the timetable would be for actually fixing this, provided that this was money that was made available after July 1st or on or after July 1st? How quickly is this something that would be replaced?
So I did send this question over to the vendor, and I haven't been able to get a response yet. The plan had been, they were aware that this needed to go to town meeting. And at the time, town meeting was going to be in May. So our agreement was they would hold the pricing for us. And then in May, if it passed at town meeting, I would contact them and we would get it scheduled for the summer. So the plan has always been for this to be done in the summer if it passed. So they know that we would be starting work sometime after July 1st. And it was our understanding that that would happen relatively quickly once it passed and we could get it scheduled with them. And it doesn't sound to be a very long process. We'd probably have to have the office closed for a day because the millwork they'll actually have to do some cutting in the exterior wall. And so the noise level, it would not be safe for staff to actually be sitting in there in the office. But if we do it on a Friday, it's a half day anyway. And we've learned now that we can all do something from home. So I envision it being a work from home half day. So we're still getting work done, and then we can get everything, at least the loud part, done on that Friday. And then if they need another day the following week, we can all still be working while they're doing that work. So it should not take long, and once we get it scheduled, it should be rather quick.
We think it's a few day process, not a very lengthy process.
Mm-mm.
And how much was it again?
Just
9,500.
shy of 10,000.
Sorry, I talked over you, Sonia.
Oh, that's okay. It's just shy of 10,000. That includes the drawer itself, the millwork to cut into the exterior wall, actually setting the drawer and building a new counter for it to sit in.
When you consider that it's going to last for another 20 years and then maybe go into another building at some point, it's probably worth the money.
Yeah, I feel like the explanation of what's actually being changed is a lot more detailed than we had last week. We thought it was just going to be fixing the microphone for $10K, but to replace the whole thing, it seemed a little more reasonable.
And
Much more involved.
Greg had suggested a bullhorn, so.
I had actually written that down, that if we did the megaphone route that Greg was suggesting, we would actually need to be outside for the taxpayers. So in that case, yes, we would need someone to sterilize it every time. Might need to build a little cover so that it doesn't get too wet if it rains. But I thought it was a great idea, Greg.
Thank you. And the people that came to look at it that said they couldn't fix it, were those the people that gave us the proposals?
Yes. Yes, both of them are well-known and very respected vendors in the banking world.
Yeah.
And that's how I got their information. One is Diebold, which is the vendor that
Block, yeah.
all the banks I had called worked with. And then the quote that I got from them, along with a separate contractor, because they don't coordinate with anybody for actually setting the drawer. It was just outlandish to have it done separately. And ADT Commercial is able to do this one with the drawer, and they have a partnership with a building company who they work with in conjunction to do the work together. And so the quote was a lot cheaper going through a company like that. But it's ADT Commercial. The drawer has a 1-year warranty installed. So we do have some protection there, whereas if we had been able to go with a used option, that warranty probably would not have been there.
Any other questions?
Do you have when the people did the separate thing, did they tell you how much it was for just the thing compared to the labor?
For just
Yeah.
for the other company?
Yeah, whatever it was. Remember how you just said they separated it or whatever?
Yeah, so the other company, let's see, they did a drawer, and I think they might have done the mill work for the exterior, cutting into the exterior, and that was about $5,000.
Yeah.
But then hiring a separate company for a counter, the quote I got was $8,000 just for the counter. It did not involve, actually installing the drawer, just building the counter. Whereas for the quote we have now, it's $5,000 for the millwork and counter, and then $3,200 for the drawer itself. So all things considered, the quotes were very similar. It was that counter build that really changed, went in the favor of this company.
Do all towns have this luxury for payments?
No, not all towns do. From what I've heard, a lot of towns in the past have gotten away from them, especially if they've built a new town hall, because for whatever reason they weren't used. But we find that, when I talked to other treasurers who had one, they said that no one ever used it, and so when they built their new town hall, they just didn't put one in. And when I mentioned that ours gets used all the time, they seem a little shocked. But here in Abington, people like having the convenience of the drive up.
Definitely convenient. I think with everything going on right now.
It's also 2020, and there's online bill payment, and there's ways to mail, and there's phones.
Yes, that's true. For people, like I said, who are on their lunch break and they just want to get it taken care of, they can stop by, drop off their payment, and go on their merry way. A lot of people want a stamped receipt from us, and they know that we have it in our hands. Some people want to pay in cash. And then a lot of
Do you think
our
that it's
elderly...
safe to be accepting cash? You're saying that this is for safety reasons. With the pandemic going on, do you think it's safe to continue accepting cash at town hall?
I don't think it would be my call whether or not we accepted cash. I think that would be probably more of a board of selectmen, or I don't know if the finance committee would have that authority. But to say we can't accept a legal tender, I don't know what the ramifications would be there, but we do have a lot of people who pay in cash, especially with the excise bills. Not so much in personal property and real estate, but the excise is really common. And then I'll say too, with our elderly population, they don't feel comfortable making payments online. I've talked to several when they call, I occasionally will have someone say, look, I can't afford to pay this bill. I have to put it on my credit card. I want to be able to come to town hall to put it on my credit card. And right now we can't do that. So I'm suggesting that they talk to a family member. One person said they were going to have their grandson help them with it. But most of our elderly population, since they're the ones who come to town hall, they also are the ones who do not feel comfortable either using the technology to do it, or they just don't want to enter their banking information. And I can't necessarily blame them for that.
So is the alternative to close up the window and basically make it not exist anymore? And if so, I assume that would incur cost as well, right?
I haven't thought about that. When I initially put this through, I was hoping it would make it onto the warrant and get passed. And if it wasn't, I was planning on continuing as it is. Now that we're in a pandemic, I don't know. It would be a discussion about whether or not it is safe, since there has to be such loud communication. And we know that the louder you speak, the more droplets you are exposing into the air. And since it's going to be such a directed, the drawer is this big, and if you are yelling, it's small. Someone is yelling through it. If they have droplets in their breath, which they do, it's coming straight to you. It's like a little chute. So it would be a concern using it at this point. It's in person isn't necessarily safe, and then that wouldn't be very safe either.
Got it. Thank you.
Further questions? Everyone feel like they have enough information? Sonia, thank you very much. We appreciate the time.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Have a good night, everyone.
Sonia.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, how do we want to approach that one? We can go back to the capital plan either right now, or we can just give our recommendation specifically on that one.
Motion to approve for discussion purposes.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
I think it was Chris. Just writing down, hang on, taking the notes. Okay, discussion purposes. Discuss away.
I think you're gonna vote on that, Matt. Motion to approve for discussion purposes. He seconded. You don't need to take a vote.
Well, we have a motion and a second. We would now discuss.
Okay. Oh, sorry. So I have a really hard time with this one because I was catching up on last week's meeting because I wasn't able to make it. And I know that we're looking to have a kind of a spending freeze. I also see this as, like Katie was saying, a lot of other towns don't even have this. So I actually see this as being a benefit for us, something that we have in place that, can certainly in our current situation, which I don't see going away anytime soon, certainly not anytime before the summer's over. So I'd like to hear other people's thoughts because I'm definitely torn about spending the money, but I also think it certainly limits exposure for employees and definitely for the people using the drive up.
Yeah, I think that local, government, especially local government, is there to serve the people. And it sounds like there's at least some usage and definitely worth bringing to town hall for people to vote on it.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And I think, to me, it seems like you have to either make a decision to use it or not. So if you're going to use it, you should fix it. And if not, then it needs to be closed up and not, they shouldn't be using a broken door or system or whatever. So yeah, that would be, and it's going to cost money to close it up. So, I guess we'd have to get a quote to see what that would cost, or just choose to repair it or replace it.
From what I understand from the conversation, everything works except for microphone in, and there's something going on the inside that needs to get repaired. I forgot what she said.
The locking mechanism.
There was something she said is like being held up by something, or
yeah, packing tape.
Yeah. So
the counter's being held up by packing tape. They have to use scissors and something else.
like
to
we should. I mean, those are things where they're like there should be like a carpenter should have been called in to like fix instead of people holding it up with goddamn packing tape. Sorry.
Right.
Just stuff like that. Again, I don't know what the rules are. I'm just saying, like, if I had to do something at my house, I really wouldn't like put packing tape on it to fix it, especially if it was being used, you know, a good amount of time.
Matt,
Go ahead.
Yes.
if I could interject, like, if we're opening the, I know, I'm gonna do it anyway. But if you have that drive-through window accessible, you could have less traffic coming into the building.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, the foot traffic.
You could say, if you want a building permit, and, you know, they come to the drive-through window, we go get the building department, or you need an abatement, we go get the assessor's office. So that window could be used for more than just the treasurer collector's office. If people are aware that that is available to them for more than just making payments.
And I think that is a good point. One of the things that was important to me was the timetable of when it was going to be fixed. Like I said last week, if it was something where once it was approved, it's going to take like 3 months to get it on the books, and then like another month to actually do the project. And we're talking like next winter before it's going to be done. Then I would see a lot less relevance to doing it right now during the current circumstances. But if it's something that Sonia believes can get done, I mean, essentially in maybe early to middle July. And there's definitely still, like Barbara said, there's definitely still going to be a lot of restrictions in place in July. So
even if there aren't as many, I am sure there's going to be. Maybe not the restrictions that we're living in today, but I certainly don't expect it to be a huge change between now and July. It certainly is if this current situation in the world has shown us anything, things like this certainly are a benefit on both sides, you know, the employees and the citizens. I certainly would prefer, I do like to go to town hall to pay my bill. I do also like to have the stamped, my excise stamped. Sometimes I pay in cash. But I would be much more comfortable to go to the drive-through than I would to have to walk through the building. But like I said, I also am looking at the financial situation. And again, I was catching up on last week's meeting, and it doesn't look like we can rely on any of the numbers that we were kind of basing a lot of things on. And so that makes me leery also.
Yeah, and I do think, I do believe that Katie raised a good point where we're headed much more to a paperless, less in-person form of doing business. But I think given the age of the population in town and the preferences of people, even of Barbara's relatively young age, to do things in person, I think there will be a demand for in-person transactions in the town office for a lengthy period of time.
Yeah, and then, you know, when you talk about contactless and paperless, right? Paperless has been a goal for like the last, 20 years in the
20, 25
and
years.
yet we still get our budget printed out.
Yeah, it's never been a reality.
You know,
I get that it would be ideal.
And it will be at some point, but we definitely aren't there yet.
Way in the future.
But the question is, do we make a $9,500 investment into something that will become less used over its lifespan?
That's why I'm thinking that, you know, even if we, I don't know, I mean, even if we vote to pass over, I think we might have some people at a town meeting, assuming we have an actual representative group showing up, which I'm kind of worried about.
We lost your sound there, Joe.
lost your sound, Joe.
Joe, we lost your sound. It's all garbled. Sorry. But I believe the point Joe was making was that he thinks that they'll, one way or another, there'll be debate over it at town hall or at town meeting amongst people. And I do believe that's probably true given the debate that we're having over it as well.
I think there's going to be a debate over things that are more important, right?
That's
So,
certainly true.
I mean, this isn't going to make or break. Sue would know way better than me, but this isn't going to make or break our budget. The point is, this is definitely, nobody can convince me otherwise, that this isn't a luxury. You can mail your payment and you can drop it off in the Dropbox. I understand the stamp. I get it. I don't even know how my bills get paid. My wife does it. I know she's never gone to the whatever and got a stamp, I don't think. But I'm assuming it makes people feel good. But even just using cash at this particular point, like that's a sketchy thing. Cash isn't good, especially, and I'm not saying it has nothing to do with Sonia, but cash around places has other people. Is this window bulletproof? Like, I'm not saying this to be a jerk, but if I was somebody who's watching this, I would literally be looking for stuff like that going, oh, shit, oh, sorry, excuse me, she takes cash? You know, that's one of those things that, again, I don't know any of this stuff. I should have probably just asked her if it was bulletproof, but if you wanted to rob somebody and you know that people come by almost every day with cash, this is a place to do it. I don't know. Just send checks. It's way safer.
They could walk in.
I agree that
They could walk in the front door.
Exactly, and that's my point, to take the cash out of the equation.
Exactly. So isn't it easier for them to be in a drive-through and they can hold a gun, but you can duck or whatever, rather than having somebody walk in the front door and say, "I want your money."
I just, the only reason I'm saying it is because I don't think that people are sending cash in the mail. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just assuming it would be a check.
Unfortunately, my mother still does, so I'm sure
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of elderly still do.
And that I get. So look, but this is definitely a luxury at this point. I don't even know. It's not that I don't want Sonia to have something. I would rather have somebody come fix the problem with the packing tin or whatever that is. Like, fix it to where the thing at least can take payments and or looks nice. But again, if we maybe understood a little bit more of how much this whole thing was going to affect us and what we'd have to make as a decision going later on, it might be an easier decision. But like, imagine a year from now being like, well, we got to figure out how to get 10 grand out of here. Like, it's just one of those things that everybody's going to be like, well, that. And again, maybe it doesn't come up, but then why say no to the car that the fire needs and the doors that the whatever need? Why say no? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, in this particular predicament, I do think at some point somebody has to say, let's just hold off right now and let's revisit it.
Yeah, Greg, and to your point, you can, you know, if the real issue or the major issue is the microphone, you can buy, you know, intercom systems for less than $200 that would work and do the trick.
100%. And that's why I'm saying the person who came in and said they couldn't fix it, again, I know friends of mine who are contractors, stuff like that. They definitely don't like try to do that because
it's in their best interest to tell you that it's not fixable. Yeah.
And it's okay. It is what it is. I'm not saying these people are bad, but when you call Hamilton Security, when you call whatever the whatever one she said, Diebold, a huge one. I mean, those guys aren't going to come in and say, yeah, I can fix it. Their whole line of business is I mean, look, we bought a used one in the beginning, so they never even made money off us. So, you know, again, I'm not even saying those people are doing anything wrong. I'm assuming that's a good product. Diebold's a great company. It's just more of a, if it can work, somebody, again, I've fixed so much stuff when people say you can't fix it. And is it like perfect or unbelievable? No, but like, can it get by for a little while and get something done. Again, I would rather see that. Maybe a carpenter, somebody who actually knows, an electrician. Has an electrician been there to say, oh yeah, I cannot rewire this with exactly what Justin just said, a microphone. Again, maybe there's rules and regulations. I don't know. Maybe the button needs to be bulletproof. I should have asked her that question, but I don't know. So I think it's a luxury at this particular point, and I have no issues if this thing doesn't end up being bad and we have money. I have no issues being like, oh, that's great. Spend it next year.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now, or is it still?
Yeah.
Yes, much
Right.
better, Joe.
There was a lot wrapped up in that comment, right? So yes, is it possible someone would decide to come and rob? Sure. Likely, based on what we know in the surrounding areas of town halls getting robbed, no, not going to happen, or very low. Sorry. I definitely agree with with Gray's comment of, can someone who's not from these big box companies come in and say, can we replace that speaker? But is that even allowed? I mean, I think it's a great idea, but like Scott and Sue, is that even allowed to have some party who's not on an approved list come in and say, we can fix it for $10?
We had a local company come in and look at it, and not one of these security companies, and they said the same thing. It needs to be, if you want to do the right thing for the drive-through window, you need to replace it. And again, as I said before, we're not talking about just the treasurer collector's office using the window. We're talking about all departments within the town hall. So if somebody comes in the front door, and when we open on Tuesday and they can do something through the drive-through window, send them through the drive-through window instead of having them in the building and infecting the building.
Yeah.
I don't know how important that is.
I'd like to do anything that's going, sorry. I'd like to do anything that, I'd like to do anything also that's going to encourage people to pay their bills on time.
Thank you.
Whatever that's going to be.
Or pay their bills at all.
Exactly. And so that is definitely one of the benefits that I see during this time, is that it does kind of remove a little bit of that
Obstacle.
Yeah, and we're talking about the population of Abington. We're not talking about the population of Massachusetts or the average people. We're talking about the Abington budget, and I think that, again, whether we approve it or whether we recommend it or vote to pass over, again, depending on the people that show up to town meeting, which is what I was talking about and kind of concerned about, may not be a true representative of people in Abington. It may be a debate that they still say, you know what, it's $10,000. As Abington feels, we want this service, and they may vote to still say yes.
The average age of the median resident in Abington is 41.6 years old.
Which means, so 41 average. What's the mean? What's the mode? I mean, so it could be that 41 is the average, but that's made up of people that are a lot older compared to a lot younger. So the average is misleading, is my point.
It doesn't matter about the average. It's regardless. It's about how those people feel about their safety and not coming into a building and driving up to a drive-through.
That's a point I have for Katie, because last week we talked about that, and she seemed to imply, at least I understood it to imply, that it may actually be safer for them to come in the building than to use this drive-up window, because it's not being cleaned all the time. And I don't know if that was a misconception on my part, or
I don't think necessarily safer in the building, coming in the building. My point was, if you have the drive-through window, what are the precautions to keep that clean going to be? Are you sanitizing your pens? Are you sanitizing the tray? What is the cost to continue to sanitize that? What's the access to getting those sterilizations? Is it going to have like the sterilization nightly after being used, the spray sterilization that's being encouraged to be used not only in buildings, but on those high touch surfaces? We know that the virus stays longer on metal. This is a metal contraption. So, you know, what's the sanitization process going to be after every single use, as well as at the end of the day? And that was my concern.
It wouldn't be any different than the sanitization of somebody coming to the town clerk's window and you want to clean it up every time somebody leaves that window. So whether they're coming in the town hall or they're using the drive-through,
You
want
have to do it regardless.
You're gonna sanitize regardless. And we have precautions for, well, we've talked about it a little bit, Scott, about somebody being in the front door and making sure that once somebody leaves town clerk's office or the building office, you wash down those windows before somebody else gets to those windows, and those people leave, and so it's no different whether you have a drive-through window or you have.
So somebody's going to be exiting the building and going outside of the building to wipe down the call buttons and the speakerphone button after every single use.
Yeah, absolutely.
What happens if there's a line of cars and it needs to be sanitized and wiped down in between each car?
We're not, there'll be no person outside.
Thank you, Scott.
Wiping anything down. No, there'll be a person inside of town hall when it's time for us to open up, and that person will go around town hall and making sure the counters are cleaned and everything. But yeah, we would not have somebody standing outside to clean the call button, to clean the drawer, to clean the glass. The use of it would be simple. They will open the door, somebody will drop a piece of paper in, and they'll close the drawer and take that paper. You know, everybody's going to have to take their own precautions. I'm, obviously going to be more concerned in the employee that's operating that they're doing what they have to do and what they can do on their end. Everything else that we're going to do at town hall, as far as visitors, there'll be signage and there'll be recommendations and there're going to be guidelines that say, this is what your responsibility is, whether you're coming to town hall or whether you're going to that drive-up window. And it may be to make sure that you've cleaned your hands or,
That's pretty much what they're doing. Like when you go to the bank, there's no one outside of the bank drive-through that, cleans everything as there's a line of cars. I think it's just, they encourage you, there's signs to clean your hands after use of the bank.
CVS does every hour wipe down of their whole cleaning of their.
Yeah, but I mean, there's nobody outside like after each car.
At CVS, they do it every hour.
Yeah. So, and then also too,
maybe we would consider that. I mean, that would be a little more reasonable.
We're seeing as of yesterday, right, that the CDC is showing that it does not spread as easily as they once thought it did through surfaces. And that's right on. I'm looking at it right now on the CDC website. So, yes, we want to minimize risk, but as the information comes in, really it's that person-to-person contact is what they're re-emphasizing is by far the most one that they believe is the higher risk. So minimizing person-to-person. Now they're coming back and saying that on other surfaces is not as bad as they once thought is an important note to take, right? So trying to minimize person-to-person until they get this under control, I think is a good measure. And I think
it's.
So I think we have. Sorry to interrupt, Barbara. I think we've gone through both sides of this.
Yeah, everybody's going crazy here, right?
Pretty thoroughly.
All right, so
I think we probably have the information that we need to make a vote on our recommendation.
Okay.
Does everyone agree that we probably have enough to vote on it now?
Can I give you one more thing, Matt?
You can.
Yes, I can. So Scott and I and Marty have talked about the security within the building and wiping things down. So it's no different than that drive-through window. It's going to be wiped down. It's going to be taken care of.
It will be part of what we do for our security process.
Exactly. So whether you vote for the window because you want it or because you think it's a COVID thing, it's a process that we have all discussed and we will continue to discuss it. Tomorrow morning we have another meeting that we are looking out for the security of the employees and the security of the residents of the town of Abington. And neither Scott nor I live there, so you have to understand that we're looking for Abington's best interest because that's where we work and that's what we're trying to protect. So now you can take your vote now.
All right. So, we do have a motion and a second. We have had our discussion. The motion is to recommend including this in the capital plan. It is not It is not a motion to approve the capital plan. It is just a motion whether or not we include this as part of the capital plan. All those in favor of including the replacement of the drive-through window, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Abstaining? Our recommendation is a split approval,
What does that mean?
that we approve it. It's just not unanimous.
Oh, all right. I've never even heard that before.
Because usually it's just stated that we approved it. I just want to point out that it was split for anyone viewing this later, so that it's clear that this was not everybody on the same page. I do think it is something that could garner discussion at town meeting, depending on who's there, like Joe was saying earlier.
Yeah. Hopefully there's more than 15.
Yes, that would be good.
So, but it's not a warrant article then?
It is
not
It is part of one of the warrant articles. So
Got it.
it's
Okay.
part of the capital plan. What we have been doing with the capital plan is we've been going through and recommending whether or not to include or remove things from it. Typically when we've recommended to remove things, Scott or Sue or Rick, before Scott was here, took them off of the capital plan. And they've taken some stuff off on their own before it even got to us. So
got it.
right now we're
Thanks.
saying keep it by a narrow margin. All right. For those who were here last week, we got through the warrant articles for the special town meeting. Actually, let me double check what we got through. We got through Articles 1 and 2 on the special town meeting. Article 3 was the transferring money into stabilization, which we're holding off on until we know a specific sum of money. And Article 4 was going to be budget transfers, but we talked with Sue last week about removing that article and doing the budget transfers outside of the town meeting process. Sue, I believe there was a potential change to what we were going to do as far as was that on the special town meeting that we were talking about as far as
No.
putting money
No.
towards the reserve fund, or was that
No,
part of the
I'm looking at putting it on the annual. I was gonna put it on special, but it makes more sense to put it on annual, so.
I was going to say, I think it does make sense to put it on the annual.
Yeah, so any capital or any other money articles that you guys don't approve in the annual town meeting, I am suggesting, or actually I talked to Scott, we are suggesting that the money doesn't go directly into stabilization, it goes into the reserve fund. So if for some time during the year, whether it's trash or recycling or health insurance or anything else that we might have reduced the estimates and may need money for later in the year, the money is sitting there for you guys to be able to transfer to pay those bills before the May 1st deadline. That you can't transfer anything before May 1st without town meeting. If you guys have it in your reserve fund, you guys can approve a reserve fund transfer. So anything that you don't approve monetarily, we want to put into a warrant article that says it's going into the reserve fund rather than stabilization. So you guys have control over when and how we can spend that money if we need it.
And the obvious, the obvious reason and the obvious thought behind it is, we're still not sure what will come down from the state or if there'll be any further cuts or, what the numbers will bring. And if there is a resurgence of the virus, or if they put lockdown procedures or stay at home into place again, and it hampers our ability to have a special town meeting, we'd still want to be able to come to you and say, look, we've got to get some stuff paid.
So for everyone to understand, essentially what we were looking at doing was the items that we have been working on removing from the capital plan. We were looking to add more money to stabilization. I believe at the end of our last meeting, the total was at $85,000, but that did not include the money for the drive up. So we're at approximately $75,000 right now, sitting with what we've changed. And so Sue and Scott.
No, you're actually at 85. So the drive up is part of that money. So you're at 85. If you take the drive through out, then you're going to add another 95.
Okay. So at $85,000, and the proposal from Scott and Sue is, instead of placing that into stabilization, which needs full town meeting approval to spend out of stabilization, to place that specific amount, that $85,000, into the reserve, the Finance Committee Reserve Fund, so that it can be petitioned to come before us to spend if there is some sort of a shortfall during the year.
Exactly. And that was Scott.
And that would,
that was
and
totally
Sue,
Scott's idea, not mine.
Scott and Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, that 85 would be on top of what we already have in the FY21 budget for the reserve fund.
Correct.
Which, Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, was that 30,000 or 50,000 that we have in the reserve fund
For
FY21?
To put in stabilization?
No, for the reserve fund.
Oh yeah, you have 50 in the reserve fund. So that would be 85 in addition to the 50.
So overall, it would be 135.
Correct. At this point. So if you guys decide not to do the police cruiser, the fire cruiser truck, or the police cruisers, or whatever, the siding, anything that you guys decide not to vote on to pursue, Scott has said he would rather put that into your reserve fund so that you guys can spend it during the year if we need it for some unforeseen circumstances, rather than stabilization having to go back.
And I think that everyone's overall hope is that we don't need it.
Right. So, but it's easier to give it to you guys to control rather than put in stabilization and then have to go back to town meeting to vote it out.
Yep. What are people's thoughts on that?
Makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't we put more of what we're putting in stabilization into this reserve fund?
Under
okay.
less pandemic-y circumstances, we're not really worried about not being able to hold a special town meeting when necessary for spending money out of the stabilization fund. And in general circumstances, the preference is to allow that to go before the full town to vote on, or to go before town meeting to vote on. Under the current circumstances, and with how uncertain the numbers coming to us are at the time that we have to pass a budget by, to me, this makes sense.
So, question.
Russ?
I think this does too. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I'm fully behind it.
Yeah.
Barbara?
So does that need to be voted at this upcoming town meeting to put the, okay, so, and then the plan is to have a fall town meeting then?
We probably will end up having a fall town meeting if possible.
I just want to say, which I'm highly in favor of, because I
Well,
don't like
we're
only having one town meeting per year.
We're currently trying to streamline this one for obvious reasons, and the thought is there's zoning articles and there's other articles that were taken off, that some road acceptances and things like that, that once we can start having public hearings again with the planning board, and you know, you can have a true public hearing with the Board of Selectmen, we can go forward with those items and with those articles. And yeah, it would be great to be able to do it in the fall. You know, unfortunately, just with the nature of this, we don't know what's coming in the fall.
But-
You know, I don't know, will there be a second wave? Will we go back to, you know, phase one or pre-phase one restrictions?
Matt, my point was we're putting 1.1 million in stabilization. Why wouldn't we put less in stabilization and more in this reserve fund for this reason? I know it's not normal, but we're not in a normal situation.
So the hope is that by the time we get to anywhere needing 1.1 million or 3.2 million or whatever amount that is, we're able to hold a town meeting, to hold a special town meeting to deal with that. This is more for if we're at a point where the amount that is needed is not as large and the situation is still more immediate need.
Okay, I see.
Scott, is that accurate to what you were thinking?
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, if we're getting up into that area where we need the kind of million plus, I certainly would think that we, no matter what, would want to go to a town meeting.
Okay.
I wouldn't put that burden on just the finance committee in any way.
Are we still looking at, the state was saying that we would be able to approve just the budget in small increments? Are we still looking at doing that?
Well, we're hoping not to do that. That's the point of, you know, trying to get this town meeting in. But if we don't get this town meeting in by the end of June, we will have to do that. And we'll do that for up until whatever point we get to have town meeting. But what we won't be able to do then is consider any of these capital projects. As it is, you know, we're contemplating, we'd like to see these projects approved, but the point of having a spending freeze in place is that until we are fully certain on the economic climate, we won't do the projects, we won't buy the vehicles. And, you know, and again, that may be something that if we're in that sort of dire strait, we're back at a special town meeting that may end up going into stabilization and being used for something else. You know, I don't even want to, you know, contemplate what we will do at that point, but that's the whole idea is, you know, if we can get up through the town meeting, get the budget passed, we've done everything that we can. Sue's spent, you know, you know, quite a bit of time over this past since we've met before. You know, we're looking everywhere and anywhere that we could to get this to a comfortable number.
And what about with the state of emergency and reimbursement through that state of emergency? I know that we are saving our receipts, so to speak, and submitting things that are
well, we're
incurred
tracking it
the
all.
pandemic. Yeah. But do we know or have any idea of when reimbursements would be seen?
I'd like to think I can give you a better answer after 4 o'clock tomorrow. There is, and I did finally, there was the Plymouth County Commissioners holding the money, the COVID relief fund money that was handed down from the feds to the state got some, Boston got some, and then Plymouth County got their own. And so we have to go through Plymouth County for our reimbursements. They are having a meeting tomorrow at 4. I just got notified of it. They don't give you a lot of notice, but I will hopefully find out what the process is. The state has a fairly streamlined process, it seems. They had a form that they sent. They already had calculations on what every town was getting, but that was every town other than the towns in Plymouth.
I heard it's like a drive-through window you go up to.
I think it might be, but it's being held together with baling wire, so.
Packing tape.
Greg, Greg.
Trying to bring it back.
Hey, Greg.
What,
Greg,
do we know what
you're-
our expenditures
No.
are?
Greg, you're an ass.
Sue has
Do we
been
know what our
tracking.
expenditures are? Sue or Scott?
So
I have a stack about, you know, 2 inches high about expenditures, but no, I haven't added them up because I don't know where I'm supposed to be requesting the reimbursement from, whether it's the state or Plymouth County. But I do have, oh wait, look, right here. At home.
Yeah, we've only just finally got, the state actually sent out, it was 2 days ago, they finally sent out their guidance on what would be accepted and how much money was allocated for each town based on population.
Right, so you have to go through what you have requested and see if it's even something that's accepted.
Well, pretty much everything we have, yeah. It's very broad. They've been very, the guidelines are good. I'm assuming that Plymouth County will have to follow the same guidelines because they must be coming down from the federal government. It's their money. So I'm assuming the process will be similar. I don't know why they would change it, but it's everything that we've been doing so far, buying, Suzette had the company come in to put in the shields at all the counters to protect everybody, on either side of that. We've got the stations for hand sanitizing, we have signage, we have, masks, gloves. I mean, anything that we've done, we're keeping track of.
More expenditures at the fire department, at the police department?
Yep.
What about the drive-up window? Can you put that in the stack?
If it wasn't a repair, if it was brand new, maybe, but I don't think we could try, but I wouldn't count on it.
We can try.
Faulty maintenance on our behalf is probably not going to fly, would be my guess.
So back to the topic at hand of putting the money that we are saving off of items being removed from the capital plan into the reserve fund. Sue, we're going to have that as an annual town meeting warrant article.
It's going to be annual. It's like at Article 10 or something like that. Right now you have 85 in there. So anything that you guys don't approve as a capital expenditure or any other expenditure. I know there was like the money for Griffin's Dairy and stuff like that. That was going to come out of raise and appropriate. We're going to shift direction. So I just need to know where the money's going.
Yep. So I would look for a sort of preemptive motion on whether or not we would approve that article when it is actually on the warrant and before us. So either a motion for or a motion to pass over that an article to put the money that we are saving into the reserve fund rather than to stabilization.
Motion to put the money that we are reserving into the reserve fund rather than into stabilization in the amount of $85,000. Oh,
I don't think we need the amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think anything that you don't vote that you're voting on money articles that you're saying you're not voting on the money articles, you're gonna put that into a reserve fund instead.
Okay.
Right, Matt?
Yes. So motion to recommend. I think I heard a second. Was it Joe or Justin? Justin.
Yep.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor of this motion? All those opposed? Abstaining? Can't tell about Katie, so I'm giving her an abstain. So with that, Sue, does that mean the number that we have for Article 3 on the special town meeting for the amount to put into stabilization is now solid?
What you have at Article 3 on the STM is not solid because we're going to actually right now, you're adding another 85,000 to that. Because you didn't approve the 70,000 for the painting at the Furlia School, and we reduced the carts for the recycling and trash carts from 30,000 to 15.
No, so my point is if we're taking that money and instead of putting it into stabilization, we're going to put that into the reserve fund.
Yes.
Then the amount that we had previously for stabilization is now set.
Yes, that's set.
So I would take a recommendation on going back to the special town meeting on Article 3.
And you're gonna approve that.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion to recommend Article 3 of the special town meeting warrant, and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? It is with the transferring $1.116,838 into stabilization.
Yep.
And sorry, who was the motion in the second?
I was the motion.
I was the second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Without any, all those in favor of recommending Article 3 of the special town meeting warrant? All those opposed? Abstaining? It is approved. That concludes our special town meeting approvals and recommendations. Brings us back to the annual town meeting. Last meeting we went through, we did not vote on the budget because the budget is not yet fully finalized. I'll come back to the budget before we go into that and get an update from Sue and Scott on that. We voted on Article 2. We did not yet vote on Article 3, which is the capital plan. Joe, did we get a follow-up from the fire chief on the deputy's truck?
No, I thought that's what I was supposed to do for the feedback you had from the chief on the trucks. No, I didn't do that. I apologize.
That's okay. If we can get that for next meeting, that would be.
I'm gonna send it right now.
You know, I thought I saw an email from him.
We had an email from him, but it was about
It was just about the plan for the engines.
Yeah, it was about the repairs for the engines.
I did talk to him briefly about to let him know that you were going to be reaching out to him. So what I was told is the vehicle, the existing vehicle has got a lot of hard miles on it. And the recommendation, I think Greg had mentioned, maybe he could a pickup truck. They have a new pickup truck, but I guess that is a sort of a frontline service truck that they use that quite often throughout the day, and it wouldn't be available, or they use it 24 hours a day apparently, and it wouldn't be available if he took it as a, because he takes his vehicle home with him. So it limited the availability, and he uses it for his maybe the dive team and other teams like that. So that's why the pickup truck wasn't an option. He's, like I said, the other vehicle, I want to say he said it had 126,000 very hard miles on it.
And is the fire deputy's vehicle a contractual item?
No.
What was that, Sue?
It's not a contractual item that has a vehicle, no.
No, but he is, I mean, he's your number two guy. If the chief can't respond, or if the chief is, I mean, you know how it works. I mean, if the chief's already at one incident and it's the middle of the night, you need this person to be able to respond. In most cases, they're probably both going to respond.
Driving to the station, getting the vehicle, and then go into the incident.
It doesn't make sense, right? It's, it's all about response. I don't think I know of any deputy chief who doesn't have a taken vehicle.
That was actually going to be my next question.
Yeah. No, it's standard.
Okay.
So does that answer or preclude my email to?
Anyone?
I didn't mean to.
Anyone have further questions on the deputy's truck? Knowing, as Scott has said several times, that the items that we're putting in the capital plan that we do approve are going to be in the plan, but they're not going to be purchased until we have a solid financial picture of where they are, where we're at. So Greg picked a good time to walk away from the camera.
Yeah, I was going to say Greg is the only one that, well, not the only one, but he's the one that initially raised the question.
And I think Greg's question, if I remember correctly, was
They share it.
typically more of if this was something that could be essentially repurposed from somewhere else, instead of purchasing something new, something that we don't already have.
Yeah. So can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So again, Greg's not here, so I don't want to restate for him. But his question was, we just bought a brand new pickup truck. Can that be dual?
Where?
Can it be shared between both?
Well, that was the one that I was addressing.
And
Yeah.
so that was what
Yeah.
Scott said, was
Yeah,
that
so-
pickup truck is in constant use. And,
Okay. So
Yeah.
that does preclude me
right.
contacting the chief to ask him, right? It sounds like the answer is no.
It does sound like
But
that. Yes.
Okay.
Justin?
We also have a pickup truck that's 10 years old but only has 30,000 miles on it that the police don't know what to do with, right? So in theory, could we not suggest using that vehicle? I mean, I know it's not within the finance committee's,
It would certainly be a good
decision-making
question
ability to do that.
to see if the chiefs could talk and if that would be something that fit the bill, even if it's for a year or 2 years.
Right. Yeah, I didn't mean,
To hold things over while things are in worse economic times.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with what that pickup truck is. Is it
when the
F-150? Is it is it a heavy duty? Do you know what?
I don't know. I don't remember that level of details on it, but it was when the police chief came and talked to us, he did discuss that there was a pickup truck that they had that they used infrequently, but that was old. I think it was maybe even like a 99 or something like that. But it only had, like Joe said, it only had around 30,000 miles on it. It was very, very infrequently used, but they were looking to essentially pass that over to another department. The chief was thinking possibly dog catcher or.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it definitely seems to be something that we'd want to repurpose.
Yes.
And certainly, I wouldn't be surprised if there are other departments that could use it, whether DPW or water.
Yeah.
But whatever the case is and whatever the condition of it is, there will be certain upfitting costs that will be associated with making that into a frontline deputy chief vehicle that,
That can work as essentially a mobile command center.
Well, it could end up costing, we may still end up needing money, and we're probably just putting something off, but we may end up having to drop $10,000 into, throwing communications, lights, painting it red, all of the above to get it to a point where it could be a deputy chief vehicle that would be temporary.
And if I remember correctly, those vehicles are outfitted with the computer system that the same as the vehicle that I wish Sean was here. Does anyone remember do you remember that, Matt? There's technical equipment, there's radios, there's things that.
Yeah, it's essentially, I know when we talked about replacing the chief's vehicle a few years back, it's essentially a mobile command center. It's used as a command center for on-site when there's an event that the fire department is going to. And I assume that the deputy's vehicle is similarly, essentially not exactly the same, but similarly retrofitted.
Doesn't make sense.
So the vehicle they want to purchase is already fitted with all that stuff for the cost that they
it should be contemplated in that price.
Yeah, I believe that is included in the price that they're.
Right.
Got it.
So if there is another alternative, and there may be, and it definitely, I can ask the questions, we will still have a upfit charge on a vehicle that, hopefully we would be able to get a few years out of, but I don't know the answers.
If it's a 99, I wouldn't be upfitting a 99. Yeah.
I kind of remembered it being like a 2012 or something. Like I don't remember it being 99. The 99 I thought was there was one of the inspectors had a car or something that was a 99 that had like 200 something thousand miles on it.
Probably the Crown
That
Vic
might
I
have
saw limping across the parking lot today.
That's probably the one.
Trying to go back to my notes just to see if I can find that. Greg's back, so Greg can ask questions.
Hey.
Greg, did you hear the answer about your question though?
No. No, I was trying to save somebody from jumping off my roof just now.
Oh,
You're the question
wife.
about the pickup truck?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the pickup truck. I heard some of it. It is.
Well, basically, it's a truck that they use throughout the day and throughout the night. The dive team uses it. I guess some of the other coordinated groups use it. So it wouldn't really lend itself to being accessible to the deputy chief at all times.
Greg, you want your deputy chief to be taking their vehicle home instead of driving from their home to the fire department to get.
I don't think that they shouldn't have a vehicle, so that's definitely not my position.
It just, yeah, I asked the question to the chief in contemplating, just to give him a heads up that somebody was
how many
reaching
miles
out.
we put on that pickup truck?
Excuse me?
Any clue on how many miles we put on the new pickup truck?
I have no idea.
That would get a good idea of how much use it gets.
Hey, you guys realize you're way off agenda right now?
Gender or agenda?
We're actually on agenda.
You're way off agenda.
We're on the capital
Just
items.
ask me about the fire thing. I don't know.
So tell me where we're going with the agenda. I need to
We're
know
on-
where I'm fixing this warrant.
We're
for
on
next week.
annual town meeting, Article 3, the
Fire truck.
capital items.
All right,
Talking about the
Let's go
fire
back there.
deputy's truck.
sorry, Matt, but
Again, and Scott has explained this a couple times, like we're not going to spend money until we get to a point where we know we have it. And that's my bigger point to all of this. But again, it does sound like a luxury. I haven't heard that the truck doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like it is old, and I understand that it's old, and I get it.
so even if you don't want to go over the capital stuff, let's continue down the agenda for what we need to be able to post, because we have to post this by June 4th if we're having a June 22nd meeting. So you want to squabble about what's on the capital items, we can do that next week, but let's get through the rest of this stuff. Sorry, that's just where I stand.
So Greg, the thing that, just to finish the point on the fire truck, the thing that you did miss was that the report from the chief was that the current vehicle has, I think it was about 125,000 hard miles on it. So their concern is that it is reaching end of life and needing to be replaced.
I hear you.
Does anyone have anything further on the capital items? Do we want to take a motion on Article 3, the capital items as they stand right now, which, just to recap, is 2 cruisers, deputy fire chief's car, trash and recycle carts at 15,000, fire alarms, the MS4 permitting, the waste oil furnace, not the painting of the Ferlio School, and then the water and sewer and golf items, and the window at Town Hall, the drive-through window.
I would
So to be
move,
clear, this is on all of them, right? Not individually, just all together?
Correct.
Okay.
This is all together now. Barbara?
I would motion to approve the capital plan with the removed items that we've removed, with the understanding that we'd be waiting to purchase items and such until we're sure of the
Financial
situation.
Okay, so I want to be sure. Fire station siding is out.
Fire station siding is a separate item, and it's police station siding.
Oh, okay, police
Article
station
6.
siding, but that's a capital.
That's
borrowing,
not
right?
till-
Okay,
Yep,
so we're
that's
just
borrowing.
going with the capital.
That's
Okay.
Article 6, and we actually, we approved that one, or no, we did
No,
not.
we had
No,
a
you
hold
guys
on
did
that
not.
too.
We put a hold on that one.
We'll get to it later.
Yep.
But everything
that
that's
one's-
in the capital, I can say I am going forward with.
If we recommend this,
Right,
yes.
exactly.
I'll second it.
So second by Russ, further discussion? Without
We're
any,
saying all of these are together, right? It's all at one.
all of these in capital are together. So we've removed 15,000 from the trash and recycle carts. We removed the 70,000 from painting Frolio. We added 10,000 for the drive-through window. And those are the changes we've made to what was printed that we looked at.
Should we vote on all of them or all?
We vote
can
on
vote.
recommending the whole article. And if people at town meeting want to break out certain things, they can make motions that remove certain things from it.
All right. I thought we just did them separately, but I get it.
No, with capital, we always voted as one whole package. Any further discussion? Without any, all those in favor of recommending Article 3 of the annual town meeting, the capital plan? All those opposed? Abstaining? Okay, it is recommended. Next, not voted on article is Article 6, which is the siding for the police station. Sue and Scott, did we get the detail we were looking for there?
Well, I went out and, met with the chief out there and took a look around and took a look at, obviously, yeah, it's a good amount of it that's coming down and absolutely has to be replaced. And, I have no level of confidence that the rest of it was put up differently and that it won't eventually all be coming down. So, I think it's a project that we have to do.
So replacing the whole thing is definitely the recommendation.
It seems to be in my opinion, it's the recommended way to do it. Yeah. And believe me, I don't like it any better than you do. Nothing worse than, a fairly new building and having issues like that, but it happens.
We have a motion one way or the other for Article 6.
Motion to recommend Article 6.
Second.
Any further discussion?
You're saying the motion to recommend, this motion is for the entire police station to get redone.
Correct.
I don't know. My only problem with all of this is that in your own life, have you cut out a good amount of stuff? Yes or no? These not like crazy questions.
Yes.
This is a luxury. Every single thing basically that we just voted on is a luxury.
Well, this definitely, a portion of it may seem as a luxury, but I mean, if the siding is falling and cracking off the building, that means water is getting in the building. It means that your building envelope has been compromised, that you've got issues.
Oh, I completely understand, but my point is I had the same thing happen in my house. And do you know what I did? I replaced the area that was faulty. I didn't redo the entire house. All I'm saying is we have to start looking at things not as luxuries, in my opinion, because we're not a luxury town.
Well, I certainly don't consider it a luxury either. And I certainly, and I had this happen to me in Duxbury after I finished the police station there. It's always the police stations for whatever reason. We had an HVAC issue there 5 years, 6 years later. There's nothing worse than going back and saying that, yeah, we had to, something isn't working right. We can't go and we can't sue the guy. He's
right.
Gone. The warranty was about as good as, the paper it was written on. And right now, the best thing to do is spend the money and fix it. Like I said, you may not see the falling or the other parts of it delaminate or coming down or being a problem yet, but you will. So we're going to be in the same position in 2 years or a year that we're going to say, all right, well, we did one side. Now we're coming for money because we're going to do the rear, and now we're going to do this.
100%.
But the questions then are going to be, why didn't you borrow what you needed to do the job right the last time you were here?
Like for instance, if you bring your car in for an oil change and they're like, well, your tires are bald, you need to replace your wipers, you need to your radiator's done, do you just let them do it all, or do you get the oil change? My point is, a lot of times all of that stuff doesn't need to happen right at that one particular point. I think there's a side that's an issue, and again, we live in what do they call this, South Shore? So they could do the sides in cedar shake or something like that. My house is like that. I've seen about 20 other, not houses, but like, business things with end caps. My only point is, a lot of things that we come for don't, or come up to this committee, don't come up to fix. They're just all redone. And my point would be, if you did that in your personal life, you'd be broke. If every time there was something wrong, your stairs had an issue, and you ripped out the stairs and put in new stairs instead of fixing the stair. My point is, if everybody in here does that, then I'm okay with it. I think,
though, Greg, we tend to use things, said earlier, we're not great on, we tend to put things off. And lots of times because of, during financial difficulties and downturns, we do put things off, or we've got this fire to put out, so to speak, over here, and so we got to let this one smolder for a little while longer, and then we end up in these situations where we've put it off, and now we have to replace it.
And
Greg, again, I'm not into.
Wait, no, Greg, my turn. The thing is that there might be a section that's falling apart right now, but the whole entire building was installed improperly, the whole siding. So you might want to fix that right now, but everything's going to fall apart. And if you want to talk to the building inspector about the pressure that they put through the siding and the where they petition the lats between each siding, it needs to be redone anyway. So why not do everything right now, get it done, rather than band-aiding this here, and then next year you need to band-aid that, and next year you need to band-aid that. And I understand what you're saying. I mean, I'm a homeowner too, and if I see something in my house that needs to be redone, I want to do it as cheap as possible. But if you know that it was installed properly, get the whole thing done.
No, and again, I get a lot of these things. It's just, we see, how do I explain this without sounding too mean?
But again, it's all from one-time money. One-time money is going to fix this building, a $6.3 million building, and $120,000 is going to fix the exterior of that building to make sure that the interior of it stays moisture, whatever.
No, I understand it. My point is, if we contract through people, I remember a couple weeks ago I said, can someone contact the people who put it up?
They did. They did. If you remember, we had this discussion before. We had the discussion around when the police chief was in, and there unfortunately, because of the timing of it, there was no recourse for it.
No, I don't mean recourse, lawyers or anything like that. I mean talking to a person who still has a business that's operational and saying, hey, you should maybe do the right thing. And if you think the right thing's walking away from something that our building inspector has said is put up wrong, fine. But again, I think it's all about how you phrase things and how you say them to people, what you say to them. But if our building inspector said somebody put things in wrong and then there's no warranty.
Greg, they don't care. Statute of limitations says they don't have to do anything after 10 years, so they're not going to.
So
No,
Greg, my recommendation
Yeah.
would be for you to work with Scott, and if this
That's a terrible
article is
recommendation.
if this article is passed at town meeting, that before we expend it, and as we've said, we're not expending any of these type of things until we know the financial situation is in a place where we can do it. But before it is expended, that you work with Scott or somebody in the town office to contact the original installer and see what they might be willing to do, because the warrant article is a spend up to, not a spend that exact amount or nothing.
Sure, I'd love it.
And I know, Scott, just so you know, Greg is always willing to lend a hand with things of that
He's
nature.
offered, and I'll definitely take you up on that. You want? I'll find out who the contractor was, and if we can find them.
I'm sure we can do a 6 feet apart meeting.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Any further discussion on the police station siding?
I've got a general question on the borrowing items. Is now, from a rate standpoint, an uncommonly good time to borrow?
I don't know if it's uncommonly good, but we have a very good bond rating. I think it is.
And I believe that the rates in general are extremely low right now.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Abington's in a great position for sure. They're as good as any other town right now, but actually better than most.
So that I would think enters into some of these items that we know we have to do eventually. Maybe now is, strangely enough, maybe now is the time to do it.
Any further discussion on Article 6? On the motion to recommend Article 6.
This isn't borrowing though, right?
This is borrowing, yes.
This is borrowing. And it's over the 10-year period?
I think it'll be figured out when it is borrowed. I know that Sonia usually works out a very good rate and deal for the town when the time comes.
Sue got me confused with a one-time thing. That's why I was just confused.
Yep. But what Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, but what Sue meant by that is this is not part of our budget.
Got it.
Correct.
No further discussion. All those in favor of the motion to recommend Article 6 of the annual town meeting warrant? Those opposed? Abstaining? It is recommended. The next article that we are up to is Article 13, which is Griffin's Dairy. And the $10,000 to purchase equipment. And Scott was going to be speaking with the Griffin's Dairy folks.
Yeah, I didn't manage to get in touch with them, but I think, you know, policy-wise, I'm just not really comfortable with this right at this time anyways. I'm not really sure.
I think
where it came from.
I think a lot of it came from the Griffin's Dairy Committee. I think a lot of the people on our committee share your reservations.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of reasons.
Liabilities and all sorts of other things of where things get stored, who uses them, etc. Do we have any?
And I were just working pretty hard to get a good contract with the insurance company.
Yeah,
we don't want to blow it.
Yeah, wise. Are there any recommendations or motions or recommendations to either approve or pass over Article 13?
Motion to pass over.
Second.
Second.
So that was Barbara and half of the committee second. I'm going to officially give that one to Joe. Any further discussion on I was unfortunately looking down, so I was trying to spot voices.
No worries.
I actually thought Greg was last.
The only discussion I would have is that at this particular point, does the town have any liability? Not liability. Does the town have? Are we supposed to be the ones mowing it or whatever? Like, who's? Because if they're going to take care of it, but we're not going to give them a lawnmower, is this going to turn like pretty bananas at one point, or does the town then have to just take it over?
I don't know, Sue. I mean, what is
What
past practice been there?
Well, I think the question is,
Any
what
idea?
what have we been doing currently? Because I mean, it is town property, and they don't have their own lawnmower right now, or their own chipper.
The town hasn't really been doing anything over there, so they've been maintaining it themselves, and that's why they asked for the extra equipment. But again, where's the equipment going to be stored? Who's going to use it? Where's the liability stand?
Is it volunteer?
But no, as far as I know, DPW has not been maintaining that property.
Does the town like that property? You know what I mean? Meaning, like, do they want it to be upkept?
Well, obviously they probably do, but it's a matter of the resources that we have to keep it up.
Yeah, no. My point is this a catch-22, right? If we say no to, I think the chipper's bananas. So I think that one has to get written off this thing. But like the lawnmower thing, if the town doesn't want to take care of it, but these people will, and the town wants them to do it, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know enough about.
I know exactly what you're saying, Greg. I think though that
Oh my God.
currently that's not what's.
If in fact we got to the point where I felt comfortable with them having some equipment, I would be more inclined to find a mower, and I think one of you recommended this last time, find a mower that the DPW already owns that's probably ready to be replaced or near replaced, fix it up and give that to them. And if we buy it and put a new mower towards the town.
Completely.
I don't know
Still
enough
have the
about
issue
this
of liability.
Well,
Right, exactly.
but if they are an official, legitimate
Town group.
town committee, town group, my guess is they're probably covered. But again, because it sounds to me like that's what they're doing anyways. They're just using their own lawnmower.
So what I was wondering and thinking was that they may be contracting with someone to mow it, and they were looking at potentially renewing the contract. The price might be getting higher, and then they were saying, well, with that we could buy our own lawnmower and mow it ourselves. I know that my neighborhood has looked for something similar and considered potentially doing that, but we ran into the same issues of who does it, who stores it, where does it go, what's the liability, etc. So
is that what's happening right now, though?
I don't know. That would be my guess as to at least one of the possibilities.
I'll try and find out. I just haven't had the time to, I tried to look them up online and try and find out who the committee chair is or whatever, and I just haven't gotten to it. But I do have a problem. Even if we got to the point where we don't mind them mowing, I still would prefer I don't like the idea of buying them a chipper, and B, I'm definitely with you on that. And
I'm sorry, it is just so far out of the something of you buy for something.
Yeah. But I am more of the opinion that we would buy the mower for the town before we would buy a mower for, and then maybe give them something else. So I'll do a little more, but I don't see it happening necessarily at this town meeting. It may be something that we can revisit if we do have a fall town meeting.
So we have a motion to pass over and a second. Is there any further discussion? Without any, all those in favor of passing over Article 13?
So, all right.
All those opposed? Abstaining? Joe, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, can we motion to move on to next meeting, because we still don't know the answer to these questions. Like,
I think we could always bring it back up again,
we can always
Reconsider. We can vote to reconsider.
all the way up until town meeting.
Okay, then fine.
Except for the emergency stuff. Right? I don't know. I'm being serious.
No, we can vote to reconsider any of those. anything up, any warrant article that we have recommended or passed over, we can vote to reconsider our vote right up until town meeting.
You're
So there
still
have
only,
been-
yeah, you're only making recommendations.
Yeah,
It's
there have
not
been
being-
several years where we changed our recommendation at our meeting before town meeting, which we won't be having the meeting an hour before town meeting this year, but there are definitely motions that we've changed, recommendations that we've changed at literally the last possible moment. So that brings us to Article 14, which is, we see this article every year. This is the Health Imperatives Violence Prevention Fund. This a service for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. That money it's available to Abington residents, and it is something that we put $5,000 to every year.
Motion to approve Article 14.
Second.
Motion to approve or motion to recommend and a second. Is there any discussion? Without any, all those in favor of recommending Article 14? All those opposed, abstaining, it is recommended. Article number 15, and I'm going to start to be a little judicious with the articles here because upcoming there are several that are on roadway acceptance and different zoning or zoning bylaws, zoning changes that are not likely to actually be on the warrant. So I think there's a good amount that we're gonna skip here. I think we'll do 15 next. We'll skip the roadway articles, go to 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. And then everything else there down is zoning, and we'll skip those as well. So Article 15 is the PEG cable access provider. And it's accepting a provision for the purpose of establishing separate revenue account. Sue, were there details on, did you want to provide some of the details on this one?
The only thing is that last year we voted in 5344 and a half, and now they want to put it in as a 5343 and 3/4. I don't know exactly the actual numbers, but it's changing it from an enterprise fund to a PEG access fund, which is in essence the same exact thing. So the money comes into the town. They have to provide us with invoices that they want to be reimbursed by, and we pay them based on what they provide to us. And like I told you, I think a couple weeks ago, that they are sitting on money, so they have to actually budget like a regular enterprise fund, but they're sitting on money. So do we want to make them use their money and generate the money within the town's funds until they deplete their funds, and then we start going towards the cable access funds that are now coming to the town or not? But it's just changing literally I think 53 and a half to 53 and 3/4. It's very similar if it's going from an enterprise to a PEG access fund.
Wasn't it previously a PEG access fund?
No, previously all the money was going directly to the cable access company.
Matt,
We switched it to an enterprise fund last year then.
Correct.
Yes.
So that the money was coming through the towns because the state said that they wanted the towns to have control over the money that was coming through.
Scott, what were you going to say?
I just received at like 7:19 tonight an email from the proponent of this article. So I really, I don't know if it's worth sending it to you or reading it. If it may shed some light
I would say if you could read it, that would be great.
Yeah, I don't think it'll make it any more confusing to me than it is. So, let's see. So it was established last year after ACAM's previous executive director submitted a warrant article requesting that a PEG access special revenue fund be established under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53, F and 3/4. ACAM's attorney requested that it be an enterprise fund, and although town council called it an enterprise fund, he presented it at town meeting under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E1/2, which is actually for revolving funds, specifically not cable access related. This year, I submitted warrant Article 15 by petition with an explanation that it corrects the section of Chapter 44 to 53F and 3/4, as Sue had explained, and affirms the enterprise fund that was voted in last year. However, as I understand it, the explanation of the correction that I submitted as part of the petition was not included on this year's warrant, and in fact, our previous town manager told FinCom at their April 15 meeting that he didn't know why Article 15 had been submitted for ACAM's revolving fund. I want to ensure that Abington CAM's PEG Access Enterprise Fund remains an enterprise fund that was approved by the voters last year, and would welcome any other way to correct this issue that would not require another vote at town meeting. Also, I understand it from conversations with ACAM's attorney, who is the Quincy City Solicitor, the president of the board of directors of Quincy's Access TV Studio. The PEG Access Enterprise Fund should be merely an accounting measure, in that Comcast and Verizon quarterly PEG payments should be passed to the studio after they have been recorded by the town accountant, without the need for the corporation to account for its spending. Is that your understanding of it as well? And that was pretty much the end of it. So I was working, I don't know the answer to that. I would call KP Law, if you'd like, to get any more clarification on it, if you think you need it. I was working.
I think it sounds like this is a statute, state law, charter statute shift. It's essentially the same thing, but it's correcting the proper place that this is.
I don't know. So
Matt, my previous experience is that most communities have the money run through the town, and they have to show their expenditures. So we get the revenue, and they have to show their expenditures so that they can be reimbursed for it. So they're basically a vendor to the town. So it's not like just because the money's coming in, they have access to it. They have to show their expenditures to the town. And if you want, I can get some access for the previous towns that I've worked for, and maybe other towns as well, that the money goes into the community, and the PEG access, the community, whatever you want to call it, cable access companies, they have to show that they've made these expenditures in order to get reimbursed for them. It's not just all of a sudden their money. And
so I think, Sue, my question on it is, does the change from 53E1/2 to 53F and 3/4 change that?
No, doesn't make any difference what you're calling it. It's either an enterprise fund, or it's a PEG cable access fund, or it's a receipts appropriated for funding. So everything has to be voted at town meeting in order to give them the expenditures that they're expecting, or they are showing us that they want, or they're going to be able to provide to us. These, like any other enterprise fund, I don't care what statute you're looking at out of those three, they still have to provide the same statutes to us.
the same information to the
Right.
town.
Exactly.
So to me, this sounds like it is essentially a clerical thing that does not particularly have any financial implications to
Yeah.
it.
I
So
would like
with-
to ask for town council's opinion on, because they were the ones that originally recommended the way that we're doing it now, I believe.
Justin actually got the wording to us, and we passed it through town council. So yes, so Justin, town council, and then meeting last year, and it was all pretty much laid out. This is how it's supposed to be, the way the law should say it should be, and whether it's 53.5 or 53 3/4, it all has to deal with the same measures. And Barbara, you can come into my office and I'll flip through the book and show you that there's no difference between any of it, or anybody can
That's what I'm saying though. So is there any reason in changing it?
No, but it's by petition, so it has to go.
It's going to be on there.
warrant.
And council obviously will be at town meeting. So certainly, I certainly will ask them in the meantime, as we're going to end up going over some of this stuff anyways, but.
Yep.
We don't have to make a recommendation on all of these, do we? They just get discussed at town meeting. Is that true?
Correct. We don't have to recommend one way or another. We can defer on this as there are no financial. Typically when we defer to like the planning board, the zoning board, someone else who is bringing an article that has no financial implications to the town. We could defer to the petitioner in this regard, or we could provide a recommendation one way or the other. Do I hear anyone willing to offer a motion in any direction on this one? Barbara, your square is highlighted on my screen. It's like it wants you to.
I'm honestly going to abstain at this point. I want to. I just don't understand why there would be a petition to change it if it keeps it the same. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just need more information.
Joe?
Pass over?
Is that not, is it to defer?
Defer to the
You can
petition.
do either.
Are there three
You
options?
pass over it saying that we don't
Yes.
recommend it.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Option 1 is to approve. Option 2 is to pass over. And option 3 is what?
Defer.
I motion to defer.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to defer on Article 15? All those opposed? Abstaining? We have deferred. Next up is, let me see, where was I? Next up is Article 20, I believe. Article 20 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer available funds of $2,500 to ARC of the South Shore for services provided to Abington residents with intellectual development disabilities in fiscal year 21, or take any other action relative thereto.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Without any, all those in favor of approval of Article 20? All those opposed? Abstaining? Chris, what were you on that one? I couldn't tell.
I'm in favor.
Okay.
Sorry.
And sorry, who was it was Barbara, and who on the second?
I think Joe. Joe, did you second?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to catch them all and be quick. Article 21 is to see if the town will vote to raise, to transfer from 2019 annual town meeting Article 3, repair for the senior center roof, the amount of $52,000 and to transfer from program income fund the amount of $48,000 to replace the doors and pave the parking lot at the senior center or take any other action relative thereto. Discussion.
This is the one that last year they approved 100,000 to fix the roof, but we got the roof fixed some other way. So there's 100,000 left.
Yep, and we took some of it into stabilization in the special town meeting Article 3.
Yeah. So what I would like is to take the other 52,000 and whether you put in stabilization or our reserve, and by all means let them use 48,000 of their own money, program income fund, to fix the doors. But in light of the current economic situation, that save that 52,000 for whatever.
Scott, I don't know how up to speed you've gotten on this one, but do you know what the estimate is for the doors specifically? I know there was a lot of discussion about this being the doors and the paving of the parking lot.
Sue, did we get any quotes on it? I'm guessing someone must have solicited some quotes for it, or just to get, for the estimates anyways.
So the doors are pretty much about the $45,000 range, because she wants to replace all the doors. And once the roof got replaced, it became more aware that the doors had drafts. Now the things in I'm using my hands, sorry.
That's okay.
But the roofs and shutting things off and putting turbines on the roof instead of having open wind vines through the ceiling. There's a lot of draft coming through the doors. So you don't want to do the pavement, that's one thing, but you're looking at least $48,000 for replacing the major doors of the building.
And I'm
Aren't
assuming
there some other issues too with the I remember there being some other issue with the doors besides the fact that they're drafty, or that they're noticing that now.
well, I was told they were very difficult to open.
Yeah.
Like there was some kind of safety issue or something like that, if I remember correctly, with the doors.
Yeah, but the 48,000 that they have is sufficient to fix the doors, and the 52,000 just goes to reserve or whatever.
Yeah, I think the plan is 52,000 was going to stabilization, right, Sue?
Yeah, so there was $100,000 that was planned for the roof, and so we're going to take part of it and replace the parking lot and put part of it in stabilization, and then we're going to take some of it from program income to replace the doors. So
it was the parking lot. Thank you, Sue. That's what it was, the parking lot.
yeah, so the whole project itself, because we got reimbursement from the state. I got confirmation today that they will be replacing the roof 100%. So the money that we put aside for the roof last year can kind of get dispersed to these other projects to make sure that the senior center is energy efficient and the parking lot is safe for the seniors.
So the question based on what, I don't know if that's me echoing, sorry. The question based on what Chris was suggesting was, given the economic times, I think we all think that the doors are a good decision to replace. The question was the parking lot and the necessity of doing the parking lot right now.
Yeah.
And could we take the 52,000 if we're saying that the doors that the 48 from program income would be about the right amount for the doors? Could we take the 52,000 from last year's article and put that into the reserve fund instead of looking to do the parking lot with that?
You possibly could, but it's the same thing as the parking lot at the town hall. The ice eaves that we've had over the last couple of years, especially like 3 or 4 years ago when we had those high snowstorms and ice issues, that the parking lot is not level, and it's a safety hazard when the seniors come back to the town hall.
I definitely would be concerned. I haven't been up there recently. I don't remember the parking lot being in great condition last time I was there. What would be the liability, Scott or Sue, the liability if it's seniors that you have walking through the parking lot? What's the liability if there's an issue?
Well, if somebody trips and falls, they're going to sue us. You know, there's a good chance, and there will be a payment that will be made. There'll be no way around that. I mean, you know, if I haven't gone through that, I don't know what the condition of the parking lot is either. But if it's got potholes, if it's starting to come up, if it's breaking up, we absolutely should fix it. It is a big liability.
As soon as we're done with this meeting, I'm headed over there right now, Scott.
I did drive over there. That there is some spots where it's cracked and there's little grass coming up. And behind the building looks like it's actually not a parking lot. It looks more like dirt. But
Isn't it
Yeah,
stone? It's actually like a stone in there, right? Or some sort of a rock or something? Or am I mistaken?
I'm not sure on that. I do
Like a
know that
gravel?
the parking lot is not in great shape.
The front part of the parking lot and where the doors are is paved. I think you might be thinking about in the further back, there's
Right.
Like closer to the doors. I think it's
No,
like gravelish or something.
Yeah, if you think about wintertime and, you know, you have the frost heaves that have pushed the pavement up, and now there's water compiling up in certain spots and freezing. That's what's happening at the town hall on the right side of the building. It's happening at the senior center too. So do you want your seniors to be trying to walk across the parking lot to get into the building and slip on some ice that we can prevent?
And how many doors? How many doors does this place have?
It has one main entrance, and the other entrance is on the back of the building. So in the back of the building is not paved.
No.
And
I'm just talking about the doors.
So I
At
think
the
there's
senior
also a side entrance, isn't there?
At the
The only
senior
reason
center?
I'm saying it is 50
Thought so.
a lot for 3 doors. That's all.
If you're looking at the building of the senior
well,
center.
there's two set. I think there's outside doors and then a
Foyer
Or a vestibule.
like a foyer,
Vestibule.
and then another set of doors. I don't know if that's all like one section. I don't know how
But
that works.
if you're talking about entrances to the building of the senior center, there's one, if you're looking at the front of the building, there's one right there on the side. And then you can drive around the back and there's one on the back. But
Yeah.
the one on the back is not, there's no paved,
Yeah, no, I'm not even talking about the pavement. I'm just talking about replacing the doors. So if there's 3 doors.
The doors, there's 1, 2, 3. There's 4 sets of doors that need to be replaced to keep the building within heating, conditioning codes, since the roof is
Energy efficient.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So these are $12,000 doors.
Doors are very expensive, Greg.
They're not, it's not a kitchen door.
Yeah. All right. Huh.
Further discussion? So Chris was looking to potentially split it to not do the parking lot. Before we get a motion, I want to get a sense of where people sit on splitting it or keeping it together.
It's funny, I'm interested in splitting, but I'm kind of the opposite. I mean, drafty doors doesn't seem like a need, whereas a dangerous parking lot does to me.
And I haven't spoken or gone there to take a look at this, but I was told that the doors were also difficult to open. They don't close right. I don't know, but that's what I was told. So if that's the case and it's a safety issue, you know, I would recommend that we do replace the doors, and then look at the parking lot if it's something that crack sealer and a skim coat of sealer could take care of for a couple of years, then maybe we could do that. But, you know, again, like I said, I haven't gone over there to look at this and looked at the estimates yet.
Seems like from a liability perspective, perhaps we should consider it. The other thing we could do maybe is have next week's FinCom in the parking lot with a socially distant and responsible setup, and we could observe both situations firsthand.
I'll even bring I got something called like a hinge lube. You put it on the hinges of doors and I'll fix them.
So I think Russ's point of gathering more information and making a final recommendation on this one next week is probably wise. And we do have time before, as Sue mentioned, we do have to June 4th to make our recommendations. We don't want to wait on many, but we can wait on this one till we have a little bit more information next week.
And I think if you were going to ask Suzanne, she would say she'd rather replace the doors in the parking lot.
Okay. All right, so we will wait for next week.
Maybe we could get some video footage
of Greg fixing the doors.
I literally have a door lubricant.
Okay, but that's not gonna be.
Greg, come on.
If the doors are hard to open, mine were hard to open. I threw a little bit of this on here.
No, I think it's the
60s
weight
part
of the doors and
so
the
as
handles that open the doors.
As much as I want to go further into that right now, it is well into our meeting, and we've only got a couple more that we want to try and get through tonight. So I'm
revisit this one.
We'll revisit this one next week. I'm going to move us on to Article 22, which is to rescind Town Bylaw 44-2. This bylaw references the wrong statute, rendering the bylaw meaningless. Any discussion? So it's proposed by
Do we know what the bylaw is?
The next article, I believe, Article 23, is amending for the tax title plans. I have some notes on the document here.
Scott, if you want to look at last year's meeting, and town council amended the treasurer collector's recommendations for those particular warrant articles, and he said that we didn't need to make those amendments, and it ended up being looked over, and with looking over those amendments that she was trying to make to be able to collect on certain taxes and stuff, it made it harder for her to do what she needs to do. So she's trying to correct what happened last year at the meeting. Okay. So if you really want to know those 4 articles, you would have to talk to Sonia about exactly what happened last year and what she's trying to accomplish this year.
Yeah, she gave me a brief Reader's Digest version of it. It makes sense, but I would suggest that if you want more information on those, that we ask Sonia to come back.
Yeah.
Do we have particular financial implications from the changes that are being made? I think is the brief Reader's Digest version.
Well, I think it would, yeah, the implications, being her ability to go into payment agreements for people that are in arrears on taxes.
So
how she could go about that.
We did go through these articles last year, saying that a sort of our general belief on each of these articles was that they gave the treasurer more tools in her tool chest to to deal with people to try and bring more money in.
Right,
Was,
and
has to
council
do with
changed-
the collecting of the arrears and the speed, I believe, in which she would be able to accomplish making arrangements to get the money.
Right, and council changed it a little bit, the wording, and so whatever they changed the wording to be was not amicable to what she needed it to say. So
Okay.
this is just trying to fix what
And-
happened last year.
And I'm
So
assuming
from-
Greg Corbo reviewed her.
Yeah, I see notes between Sonia and Greg on the copy that I have of this from March of this year, like January through March of this year. My comment that I would make is that this appears to be attempting to do the same thing that we wholeheartedly recommended doing last year. It just is an attempt to fix the wording and the appropriate legal language to allow her to do it. And I think that the recommendation between both the treasurer and the town council carry more weight in this regard than the recommendation of the finance committee would be my.
Matt, if we're gonna not, I mean, can we just, if we're gonna weigh in on this, can we just make a motion to recommend all three, 23, 24, and 25, since they're all interrelated?
I think
Time, or is that-
let me see, 23, 20,
Because they seem all interrelated, right?
yes, 22, 23, 24, and 25 are interrelated.
Okay.
And the proposed streamlined town meeting that I've been talking with the town moderator, Sean Riley, about has these grouped to be voted together.
Great.
I'd make a motion to approve Articles 22, 23, 24, and 25.
Second.
I think I beat Russ.
I think you did too. So we have a motion to approve, to recommend Articles 22, 23, 24, and 25 as a group. It is motioned and seconded. Do we have any further discussion on these? Without any further discussion, I'll take a vote. All those in favor of recommending? All those opposed? It is recommended. And that brings us to the zoning articles, which brings us to, let me just make sure, hang on a second. Yep, that brings us to the zoning articles, which takes us through the end of the articles on the warrant. So we have Article 21 that we are waiting for next week to provide a final approval on. And the zoning ones, actually I would take, in case they end up on the actual warrant, I would take a motion
To defer to the zoning board.
board for Articles 26 through 36.
26 is
motion.
the FEMA article.
Oh,
And that one we will be
that one
taking
we
up.
will,
And
yes. Sorry, I thought there was one that we needed to take up, but we would still defer to the zoning board.
I think you would defer to the planning board on that,
Okay,
would be my,
so let's take 26 and then group 27 through 36.
So who submitted the article? It was from the planning board?
I believe it was it doesn't specify.
yeah, 26 and 27 were both by the planning board. At least that's the way I'm reading it, but typically it is the planning board that deals with FEMA and firm maps.
Yeah, that looks correct based on what I'm seeing.
So motion to defer on Articles 26 and 27 to the planning board.
Second.
Russ, you sleeping?
Who was the second there? Was that Joe?
Yeah, me again.
Trying
Any
to take
further-
all this down here a little bit.
Further discussion? Without any, all those in favor of deferring to the planning board for 26 and 27 is unanimous.
I think
For,
actually, you get the planning board is going right down the line here up
for,
to,
okay, so they are
36.
zoning articles, but they were put forth by the planning board. So we can defer to the planning board. I'll take another motion just because we already voted on that one for 28 through 36.
Motion to defer.
Second.
Any further discussion? Without any, all those in favor of deferring to the planning board? All those opposed, it is unanimous. Thanks very much. We have gotten through all but Article 21. With that, let me find my agenda. That brings us through the new business. Do we have any liaison reports? We do not. We don't have correspondence. We don't have minutes to review. Our next meeting is scheduled for next Wednesday, May 27th, once again at 7 o'clock here on Zoom. Is there any further discussion, comments, motions for tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, Barbara and Justin.
Joe.
Joe.
Good
Sorry.
job.
When I'm looking down, it's hard to tell between voices.
I'm sure Justin is against it, but
All those in favor of adjourning until next
hey,
Wednesday.
it is Greg.
We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
have a good night.
Thank you.